So thank you. It's a pleasure to be before you today, and myself and my colleague Shawn wanted to take just a few minutes of your time this afternoon to share with you a little experiment that we had run earlier, just a couple months ago actually, where we got started, and we thought we liked it so much we wanted to bring it to your attention to see if this is something that could be useful to you and your community going forward, but we'll come back to that. First, we wanted to talk about what is this experiment that we ran. And if you recall from earlier today, there's been kind of this message of like, we don't know what the future holds, but it doesn't mean we do nothing about it. And what Shawn and I had discussed was, wouldn't it be interesting if we were able to create a dashboard of sorts that would allow somebody to model a variety of scenarios, to project these scenarios about how does AI show up, but with context, because we're not talking about AI in a vacuum. And one of the things that I was thinking about is, well, what does it mean if you're in an area of the country where there's a declining workforce, meaning the median working age population is going down, so you're going to have to do more with less. What does it mean if you have low participation rate versus high participation rate in the labor market? What if you are able to increase education attainment or close the skills gap, or maybe not make progress on that? How does AI show up differently? So we were trying to look at a variety of different contexts, how AI might show up, and where you live matters, because that kind of establishes the baseline, and then you could kind of adjust what your future potentially looks like. We think we're going to have higher labor force participation rate. We think we're going to close the skills gap. We think we're actually going to reverse the demographic trend, and we're going to have a population increase, not a decrease. And then how does AI need to show up in order to hit our goals, whatever they may be, including our growth goals? And I think what you're going to find is, depending on how you choose to toggle these various levers to model potential futures, 10 years out, 20 years out, 50 years out, you're going to get a sense of how you need to establish a goal to get where you want to be relative to AI. That can include very aggressive adoption. That could include maybe less pressure on that adoption. But what we're trying to give people is something to start and react to, because when you think down to the county level, how is it showing up here and what's it going to look like in 25 years? Where do you start? So we thought it would be interesting to develop this interactive dashboard that would allow you to model one or more scenarios and to have AI do the work for you to actually give you some key takeaways, so you can not only project, but through those projections, you can prioritize what you need to focus on, and you can make a plan for how to get there. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague Shawn, who's going to walk through an example of what it looks like when you actually build a dashboard like this and use it on a county in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and thanks, Jason, for teeing that up. And so when we started this whole initiative, this whole endeavor here, we kind of came with the question of what happens if AI develops and adopts at different rates? And what does that do for different counties from the jobs, wages, and economic output perspective? And so the county that we ended up falling on was Dauphin County, Pennsylvania. And the funny thing about this whole scenario is that in order to get to the point of how does AI help us understand what the future looks like, we actually had to use AI to get there. And so we actually went to AI and Claude specifically, excuse me, we went to Claude specifically and asked, what is the most average county in America? And apologies, I did wake up a little sick today, so muscling through it. But Claude did give us Dauphin County, Pennsylvania is the most average county in America. And so if any of you are from Dauphin County, PA, we're just messengers. But what we ended up building was something we're calling HelpID. And so it's a scenario planning tool that takes local labor force data, injects it with a little bit of economic modeling. And so this way we can project out and see how different counties' economies and workforces change over time, especially from the lens of moderate AI adoption, no AI adoption at all, and very aggressive AI adoption. And so the methodology is broken down to 3 different things. So there's like the baseline economy. So we have to look at Dauphin County and see where are they currently with GDP, employment, population, data points like that. But then also looking at how does it project out from a labor force perspective. So there's two aspects to the labor force side. So there's going to be the supply, and there's also going to be the skills. And so from a supply side, we want to see at different rates and different aging trends. And we see this across the United States right now, where we see the aging population is continuing to get older. We see people retiring and not necessarily being replaced in the workforce. And so how is that going to change the supply going forward? But then also, how does that affect the skills? And so with skills, we can have people be in a certain area or do a certain thing, but then how do they adapt and fit to the future of the work? So we modeled that out from the labor force side, but then also from the AI side. How does adoption change? So we know that's for sure going to boost worker productivity, but then how many jobs is it going to displace? But conversely, how many jobs is it going to create as a result as well? And so, like what Jason mentioned, so the dashboard that we have has 4 different sliders. So we have job growth rate per year, we have labor force participation rate change per year, skills alignment, and AI augmentation. And so, just so we're not boring you with a whole bunch of slides here, we'll just jump right into here. So this is what the dashboard looks like. And so you can see, and like I mentioned before, this is all built on Claude, all built on AI. And so when you're looking at this, we have different rates. And so this is a model that we had built out with a different scenario. So the baseline scenario that we had was model assumptions said that job growth rate for Dauphin County was 0.3% per year. Labor force participation rate was negative 0.25%. Skills was 75. Skills stayed at 75, and AI augmentation was 100. Those are the baselines. We had modeled this differently so we can show what does it look like with an aggressive job growth rate of 1%. And then labor force participation is an interesting one because as we've seen over the last couple of years in the US economy, so in February 2020, the labor force participation was 63.3%. As of April, it's now 61.8. So just over the course of 6 years, we've seen labor force participation across the US decline by 1.5%. So for us, when we modeled out the scenario, just to have it at 0%, that's actually a very bold, aggressive kind of take because that's not necessarily indicative of what's going to happen. But for the purposes of this demo, we want to show what it's going to look like. And then the other slider here was AI augmentation. So 200% meaning that if the county were to adopt AI and adopt it very aggressively, what is that going to look like to not only, what is that going to result in for not only GDP, but then also, even more importantly, the next slide here, the labor market. So this shows us a supply-demand curve on workforce supply, skills aligned supply, and then the employment demand. So when you look at this modeled out scenario, and again, this is with labor force not being changed at all, so whatever it is right now for Dauphin County, that's staying the same all the way to 2075. What does that mean? And why is it important? So this is important because you want to see where the supply and the demand are going to intersect. And so we can see, according to this chart, and I know it's a little small, and if you want to actually see the demo, see the product or demo later, feel free to find Jason or I later, and we can walk you through it. But the important thing here to know is if I'm a Dauphin County official and we know that in 2050 that's where that intersects, that means post 2050 is when we're going to see a labor shortage in that county. So what do we want to do with that information? We want to be able to figure out ways we can upskill our workforce. We need to figure out ways to either keep the labor force participation rate the same or figure out how we can get additional people into the workforce. But this is a good tool to help us start thinking about ways to plan for the future. And that's the whole impetus of HelpID here.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, Shawn, this is a great way to establish a target. To say now data based on a scenario that feels realistic to us is showing us when we're going to have a key milestone met. But now we also know between now and that date, how do we know if we're on track or not, or if we're trending in the wrong direction? This gives you data to make informed decisions and to monitor progress. And you could also change the scenario, as things will change over time. It's meant to be something that could be adapted. But now you actually have real information you can react to and plan for, and you can track progress against.
Yep. And since this is a live demo, so we can't show you the slider here, but if we were to keep labor force participation rate at negative 0.25%, which is where it's at right now, we would see that worker shortage hit a lot sooner. So I think I was playing around with it. I think it hit in 2032 instead of 2050. So these are the different types of ways you can model out scenarios and see how, as a local county official or just local state employee, what are the ways we can start planning for the future. And so on top of all this, we also have this is just the key takeaways. So we don't need to spend too much time on the key takeaways here. But in the dashboard itself, there's an option to generate a PDF, gives you a whole report on the actual numbers. But then here's the key takeaway section. So just on our scenario here, so at 200% augmentation, you can just see the first sentence. They're going to see a 350% increase in GDP by 2075 with those certain parameters. But obviously, this will update and change as you change the parameters. And then on top of that, even bigger is the industry by industry. So obviously, every county is going to be different. Dauphin County is interesting because it's central PA. It incorporates Harrisburg and Hershey, Pennsylvania. So they have high concentrations of healthcare and also manufacturing. And then the Penn State Medical Center, I believe. I can't remember if it was UPMC or Penn State, but they have a big healthcare presence as well. So, and you'll see this in the next slide. But the four key points on the industry side are the compound annual growth rate, which is a metric that BLS has. So that's just showing for this specific industry how fast or how slow are they growing, or if they're shrinking. Displacement is how many jobs are going to be replaced by AI, and then how many jobs are going to be eliminated because of AI. And the AI replacement / creation is how many jobs are going to be transformed or created because of AI. And so the key thing you want to see on the next slide is the net AI score. So the net AI score is just taking your displacement percentage minus subtracting it from the replacement percentage and giving you a net AI score. So green means good, red means bad. So according to this model, retail, trade, and transportation and warehousing are going to be the most impacted in Dauphin County by 2075. And then in terms of, so outside of the industry, we'll see one more thing. So I know we have about 4 minutes left here. But with scenario comparisons, you'll see this on the next slide as well. So if you were to break down different scenarios, so this is showing baseline, conservative, moderate, and then if you want to go full AI disruption, if you want to go high growth potential, if you want to go population decline, which is also a potential area here, it'll show you what the potential impacts on, this is specifically on GDP, but we can change up the dashboard to show different areas as well. But you can see according to the baseline, so that baseline no AI, by 2035, there's going to be $37 billion in GDP in Dauphin County. With the scenario that we modeled out, it's at $57 billion. And then you can see how the varying different degrees of AI adoption versus population metrics versus growth potential versus skills changes the outlook.
Yeah, and a couple of things I just want to emphasize is that key takeaway piece of a report. So you could generate as many of these reports as you like based upon the scenarios you've chosen and the economic model you want to use. But that key takeaway is meant for folks like me, where if I need to kind of take this and present it at a meeting and kind of just say, I don't need to show you kind of how the sausage was made, but I kind of need you I need to summarize what are the major implications of this model. That's what that's really designed to do. So we're using AI to kind of process all of this to really kind of distill it down to something a regular person could use to have a functional conversation at their company or in their community. So it could do many things for different people. It could get really wonky if you want to approach it as an economist or someone who's an expert in labor market information. But if you're just trying to say, I need to know under these, with this model and with these three variables, what does it mean for my community 10, 20, 30 years out? This is going to enable them to get really quick, easy to process information summarized through AI for your use however you see fit. So go ahead.
And one thing to add to that as well. So this is still just a novel project. So we picked this up very recently and kind of put it all together and built it out. And so this is only incorporating the data that we found for Dauphin County. The one thing that this doesn't include is like the foreign-born workforce, immigration numbers. And so this, once we incorporate that, is going to create a much more robust and clear picture of not only Dauphin County, but all the other counties in America as well.
Yeah, so this was really just that we said, hey, let's see if we could just do this. Is it feasible? Is it possible? We were really excited to see just how far we were able to get with just the immediate technology that was available to us. We thought it was kind of fun that it shows us the possibility of using AI to talk about AI. But what we took from this is a couple questions we had for you. So maybe by a show of hands, is this a tool that would be useful to you in your community? Would something like this be interesting if it was available to you? Yep. Great. And following up on that, we were wondering if we should develop an MVP. So this could be more than just a presentation and something we just kind of ran on the side, but this could be something that we can make available to you as a product or service. We'd be happy to kind of put the time and energy into that. What we're trying to see is would a projection tool like this be helpful? And if so, we would love to not only produce it for you, but we'd like to produce it with you. And we would welcome anybody's input and participation as we figure this out. We had to make some key trade-off decisions on where are we going to focus the tool? Are we doing the county level? Should it be a larger region? How many projections should it port? Should migration be a variable or not? So we don't have all those answers, but we would, if this is something you want to use, we need to know how the user needs it to show up. So we would welcome your input and participation so we could actually move this from demo to an MVP. And Shawn, any other takeaways for the audience today?
Now, I think the biggest takeaway is we can use AI, anyone else in this room can use AI. This was just us sitting down, plugging away, and building out something and seeing where it went, and here we are.
Yeah, and I just impress upon you, AI does not show up in a vacuum. There is a context. A tool like this shows you how to have AI meet context in a practical way that tells you something about where your community is heading. And with that, we wish you a good afternoon.